Members, in state houses across the country, we've seen an era of regression where our biggest businesses, our local credit unions, our workers who work for those companies have all been told they have to ignore the consequences of climate change or else risk being boycotted by that state. This has happened in Kentucky, West Virginia, Florida, Texas. We have a historic opportunity today to send a different signal from our state. It says we don't want our businesses or our economy or the people who work here to be blind to the growing risks of wildfires, of droughts, of floods, and all the things we know and see with our eyes are getting worse every day. I was really proud to work closely with the opposition as well as our coalition here and get this bill to a place that I think we're going to have some real progress and buy-in from the business community and from the workers who are going to be impacted in an increasingly risky future. In particular, I want to just state for the record that I'm committed, based on conversations we've had with the building trades and some of the other stakeholders, including the chamber, to working on a cleanup component to this that will create space for pathways of reporting that take into account other climate risk reporting work being done at the federal level. The SEC, as you may know, is considering a very similar regulation, as well as some other states and local governments leading. I think this is a fair compromise, and we want to see more businesses leading in this space. We're not in a place where we can go back and afford to just bury our heads in the sand. To force our industries to do that is reckless, and I view this as an important marker of progress that hopefully will yield benefits, not just here in California, but ripple across this country. So with that, I respectfully ask for your vote.
Any discussion or debate on this issue? Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question of the author.
The author accept a question.
Yes.
Okay, Senator Grove.
Does your bill include policies that are generated out of this building that cause, that actually benefit corporations to make more money?
Senator Stern.
The question is, will this incentivize corporations to find a way to make more money?
No, the question is does the bill affect policies that leave this building to allow corporations to make more money? I can provide an example if it's helpful.
Why don't you pause for a second? Let Senator Stern decide if he wants to answer it now or in his close.
Happy to let her finish her comment. I'll answer.
Okay, Senator Grove.
Thank you. I know we're talking about carbon neutral and carbon emissions. I guess the reason why I asked that question is because oil per barrel is set on a global market. Californians consume about 1.8 million barrels of oil every single day, and we import a tremendous amount of that oil. Let's just say, for easy math calculations, that the barrel of oil is priced on a global scale of $100 per barrel. And if you produce that barrel of oil here in the state of California, you have CalGEM, CEQA permits, water permits, DWR, you have labor cost, you have environmental protection cost. So your net profit for oil for that barrel is extremely low. Let's call it $20. But if the same oil company produces that oil from, let's say, Ecuador, and the average wage in Ecuador is $450 a month. They don't have to get a permit from CalGEM. They don't have to comply with CalOSHA. They don't have to comply with our labor standards. They don't have to comply with DWR. They don't have to comply with any type of permitting process in order to produce that oil from the Department of Energy, or Ministry of Energy, they call it there in Ecuador. They can just produce it. Then their net profit per barrel of oil is roughly 90% of the $100 barrel, when it's like 20% here because of the cost to do business in the state of California, because we enforce labor protections. We require employers to cover workers' comp insurance. We require them to get a permit from CalGEM. We require them to do a CEQA study in order to put a piece of drill pipe in the ground to produce the oil. So on a global scale, policies that come out of this building allow companies, major oil companies, let's just say, not small producers, independent, that only operate here in California, but they have the opportunity to enjoy the benefits of greater revenue because of the policies. So I guess my question to the author was, is it feasible, or is it a question to say, if this bill benefits those corporations from doing business outside of this state in other countries? And you can use that in your close, but I would just encourage all of you to consider that fact, that we consume this oil every single day. Our constituents need it and use it, and we are importing oil from countries, like I just used Ecuador. We import oil from Iraq, where, you know, let's just be real. Last week they had a hanging of the LGBTQ community because you can't be in the LGBTQ community in Iraq. They don't let women drive and vote, but by God, we'll send them $5 billion every year of taxpayers' monies instead of producing that oil here in this state. And they still do open air flaming, which we abolished in, I don't know, 1939, I think. So companies that operate outside of the state of California have the ability to have more resources, especially when there's global price settings on particular commodities. And I was just curious if your bill had any reflection on that. Respectfully ask for a no vote on this bill as well.
Thank you, Senator Grove. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Senator Min.
Thank you, and I want to thank the author, my seatmate, for bringing this bill forward. I actually started my career at the Securities and Exchange Commission, and I just want to state for the record that I think the SEC is doing a disservice to investors by not promulgating rules requiring the reporting of green-related, environmentally related financial risk. I think we have two bills here. I'm sorry, excuse me. SB 253, which we passed out earlier and passed out of the Assembly, and this bill, I think, as a companion bill, are critically important for addressing two issues. One is the greenwashing that we're seeing that's unfortunately too prevalent in the reports of major corporations, but also as far as the risk that they're facing going forward. We faced enormously anomalous weather patterns this year across the country, across California. We know these are just going to accelerate. As temperatures continue to increase, as weather patterns change, I think we're just starting to experience and begin to understand the scope of what we're facing. This is going to pose huge risks to our supply chains, to just the way we think of civilization, going to have huge impacts on our economy. I think it's critically important that we start to require that these risks, which clearly are material risks, material financial risks, be reported. So I would respectfully ask for your aye vote. I think we need to lead because, unfortunately, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission is failing to do its job.
Thank you, Senator Min. Any further discussion on this bill? Seeing none, Senator Stern, you may provide the closing argument.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I appreciate the comment and the advocacy of my friend from Bakersfield. I would just say, so you understand what this bill does, risks in your supply chain or anything, any material risk to your company need to be reported. I would assume if you are Chevron or some other major oil company that was referred to, there are much greater risks in that supply chain beyond our borders. So if you're trying to say bring oil through the Straits of Hormuz, you are going to have serious climate and supply chain risks that need to be reported under this bill. That's riskier oil. Oil from Ecuador, where incidentally the people of Ecuador just voted at 60% to stop drilling in the Yasuni Reserve. They do have regulations actually there, and the people have spoken up. That's a risk. That's a real risk that those companies are going to now have to report. So if anything, I think this bill is actually going to have an insourcing effect and an incentive for more companies to bring business home. That includes energy production, but I would say it also goes with making a pair of pants, bringing fruit and crops from overseas, anything that's manufactured, say, in China or other countries where they may be having riskier practices and have more vulnerabilities. Those risks are all going to be disclosed, and it's going to end up being, in my view, a net win for American business and American workers, and actually is going to put America's economy on stronger footing. So I actually appreciate the concern. I hold similar antipathy for these other jurisdictions. I don't want to be leveraged in the Middle East or down south any more than you do. And that's why I think this is finally going to start to tell the whole truth about climate, and for that reason I respectfully ask your aye vote.
All right. Senator Stern has closed the debate on the amendments from the Assembly. And with that, the clerk would please open the roll.
Allen. Aye. Alvarado Gil. No. Archuleta. Aye. Ashby. Aye. Atkins. Aye. Becker. Aye. Blakespear. Aye. Bradford. Caballero. Cortese. Aye. Daly. No. Dodd. Durazo. Aye. Eggman. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Gonzalez. Aye. Grove. Hurtado. Jones. No. Laird. Aye. Limon. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Menjivar. Aye. Min. Aye. Newman. Aye. Wynn. No. Nilo. No. Achobo. No. Padilla. Aye. Portantino. Aye. Roth. Rubio. Aye. Sayarto. No. Skinner. Aye. Smallwood Cuevas. Aye. Stern. Aye. Umberg. Aye. Wahab. Aye. Weiner. Aye. Wilk.
Please call the absent members.
Bradford. Aye. Caballero. Dodd.
Bless you.
Grove. No. Hurtado. Roth. Wilk. Aye.
On a vote of 28 to 8, the Assembly amendments are concurred in.